everyone, welcome to another episode of rawradianthealth.com, and I'm Natasha St. Michael, and thank you so much for joining me. So today I'm just going to go over some questions I got over the weekend about how to store kefir grains and if you can use dairy kefir grains in non-dairy solutions and will it still work. Okay, because last week I did a video showing you how to make apple juice kefir. Okay, and I got a lot of response about asking me all sorts of questions about the kefir grains. So I'm going to try and answer as much as I can with this, okay? So pretty much the main thing is that there's two different types of kefir grains. There's dairy kefir grains and there's water kefir grains. The dairy kefir grains live off of lactose, okay? They live off the sugars that are found in dairy products like goat's milk, cow's milk, sheep's milk, things like that. And then there's the water kefir grains that live off of sugar. It lives off of like sucrose and fructose, things like that, that you find in coconut water or in various fruit juices, freshly pressed, okay? This stuff has to be fresh. We don't want to be using pasteurized stuff to ferment, okay? So main thing is I've actually done the experiment with using dairy kefir grains to ferment non-dairy coconut water and juices, and it has worked, okay? And so pretty much my suggestion is because what ends up happening is it will ferment it, but the grains will not continue to multiply or grow if they're taken from a dairy solution put into a non-dairy solution. That's the only thing, okay? So what I suggest is that, let's say you've got dairy grains and you want to ferment apple juice or coconut water. My suggestion would be to first rinse those kefir grains really well, okay, using filtered water, okay, using spring water or filtered water, but don't use tap water, okay, and just really just clean them well and then put them into your non-dairy solution, and you can make a few batches with it, but after maybe 3 to 5 batches, I would suggest putting them back into some sort of dairy solution, some sort of milk, so that at least they can continue to grow and repopulate and that they're in the environment they should be in, okay? And then after maybe 1 batch or 2 batches in the dairy, then you can put it back into the non-dairy, okay? So just to kind of bring it back and forth, because the dairy kefir grains really should be in dairy to be able to live and prosper, okay? But they do ferment non-dairy liquids. Okay. Now the next question is about storing the kefir grains. Now let's say you want to store these kefir grains for a long period of time, okay, like a few weeks, few months even. Now what I would suggest would be, again, to rinse them off really well and dehydrate them. Okay, I'm going to show you here. These are kefir grains. These are dairy kefir grains that I've had dehydrated for quite a while, and I've had no problem with them. I just dehydrate them, and if ever I want to make dairy kefir again, I have them, okay? Or if I want to give them away, whatever. They're stored. They can be stored like this forever. So I prefer it being in a dried form. Some people say you can freeze the kefir grains. I prefer to just dry them out, and if you don't have a dehydrator to dry them, then you just rinse them off really well. Find an area in your home that's warm but has a lot of air circulation, and you just leave them out and they will dry naturally. You can also, an easy way to doing this is to actually put your kefir grains in a nut milk bag and hang it somewhere where there's air circulation that passes through, and it will dry within a few days, okay? And just make sure it's thoroughly dried, so it might take like 5 days to dry it out. So this is something if you want to be drying them in the long term. Now what ends up happening is that when you want to reuse them, you might have to do a few batches, okay? You might have to put it in the liquid for, you know, a few times until it really, they start working again, okay? So maybe the first 2 batches that you do with your new kefir grains, it might not fully ferment the liquid it's been put into, okay? So you might have to do 2 or 3 batches, and then you're fine, okay? So that's one way of deactivating them and reactivating them. Now let's say you just don't want to be using the kefir grains for like a few days or a few weeks. To be honest with you guys, I've left my kefir grains like in like coconut water, and years ago I'd leave them in dairy products for like weeks on end, and nothing happens to them. I mean, they don't die. They're, you know, I think people are really scared that these things are so fragile and they got to be so careful, but really they're very, very hardy, okay, and that they can, you know, they don't touch metal or anything on them, and don't put chlorinated water on them, but other than that, they're pretty hardy. That if, like, let's say you don't want to make kefir for a few weeks, then just leave it in, like, if you have a water kefir grains, then just put it in like some water with some fruit juice in there, some fresh fruit juice, some apple juice, and just leave it. And you can store it on your counter, or you can even put it in the refrigerator, okay? And same goes with the dairy ones. Like, you can put it in some dairy and you can just store it in the refrigerator, or store it on the counter, okay? But if it's more than like a few days or a few weeks, I would then dehydrate them, okay? Like, if you know you're not going to be making it for like a few months, then okay. And the main thing is that in between batches, my suggestion is, because someone asked me this as well, it's like, well, what do you do in between the batches? And my suggestion is to get into a rhythm where you've always got kefir to drink, and you've always got it fermenting, okay? And I will tell you one thing that I do is that, even though, like let's say I'm fermenting the apple juice, okay, and it took 3 days for it to ferment, and I have a batch that is enough for me to drink for 3 more days, I might still leave those kefir grains in the solution. Even though it's gone to its fermented point, I still leave it in and just let it continue fermenting. I mean, because I know I'm going to be drinking it within a few days, okay? That it's fine to drink, you know, that it's not gonna, I mean, you wouldn't want to drink it if you were left those kefir grains in it for like a week, but if it is in there for a few days, it's not a big deal, okay? And again, if you want to take breaks between your batches, then just put them in the refrigerator. But always make sure that if they're dairy grains, that they're in dairy liquid in the refrigerator, or if they're water kefir grains, make sure that they're in a sugar water, like a coconut water or fruit water, that they always got something to eat, because that's what they're eating is that the sugar, either the fructose or the lactose. Okay, so those are my little tips for the kefir grains. I hope I've explained this well enough that you can understand. And if you do have more questions, contact the kefir lady, because she's a great source to buy the kefir grains from. And I mean, this is the expert on kefir grains, okay? She'll know everything, okay? And her website is www.kefirlady.com, and contact her, okay? And the kefir grains are super cheap, so get them from her, okay? And also too, someone had asked me, like, how long do they last? These things last forever, okay? They're not a starter, so these grains last forever. As long as you take care of them and you're constantly feeding them, they will last forever, okay? So have a fabulous, fabulous day, everyone, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye!